Hello, my friends. It is Monday, December 2nd, 2024, and we have 7 big stories for you today. So the first is that Scholz arrives in Kyiv and pledges another $680 million in military support. In a surprise visit, Scholz reaffirmed Germany's commitment to Ukraine, positioning the country as Europe's strongest supporter. So he's doing that intentionally. I think he actually does care about Ukraine and does want to support Ukraine, but it's odd after the call to Putin. It looks like some kind of penance or something. It just, and Zelensky posted this: together with Scholz, we honored the memory of all our warriors whose lives were taken by Russian aggression, eternal memory to Ukrainians, to all our heroes who lost their lives. And so he's out there with Scholz visiting this thing, and it's a tough line for Zelensky to run because he has to be critical at certain times where Scholz is like, you shouldn't have talked to Putin, Scholz. Like that would have been just a bad idea, and we tried to talk you down, but he went and did it anyway. Now Scholz, according to Bild, will try to find out what Ukrainian side is ready to do for a ceasefire. Like Bild is saying one thing, and now analysts believe that before the early elections to the Bundestag, the chancellor wants to show himself as a leader who's ready to negotiate a peace agreement between Ukraine and Russia. So that's one perception, and another take on this is still Kyiv Insider talking about still playing both sides. German Chancellor Scholz seeks to look tough on Russia without actually being tough on Russia. So I'm not sure exactly where they are. Both of these were commentaries, not facts, but I'll leave that to you to decide. Okay, vigorous discussion erupted on social media. What did Chancellor Scholz bring to Kyiv in that silver briefcase? Write your options in the comments. So we'll play a little game. This silver briefcase here, what's he got in that silver briefcase? Wrong answers only. Put that in the comments below, and we'll look forward to that and just have a little fun with it. Okay, Syrian Rebels, big story number 2. Syrian Rebels captured S-25 air defense position with its equipment east of Aleppo. I didn't show you this yesterday. These are all things that I've showed you now since yesterday. Rebel forces captured a 152 millimeter 2S3 self-propelled gun from the SSA, that's a Syrian army. Meanwhile, Russian planes are bombing the Christian neighborhood of Suleimania in Aleppo city. So Russia's planes are directly involved in this as well. And again, Russia is an ally of Syria and has been working with the Syrian Assad regime for a long time here, so there's nothing new. And they become kind of a, Syria was an asset that now has become a liability for Putin. That's what I was talking about last night in my 3 big stories. The Syrian regime leadership held several diplomatic meetings with regional officials, almost certainly to coordinate with allies and other stakeholders amid opposition offensive. Now, who are their allies? Including Iraqi militias have begun assisting the regime. Now, Iraqis, the Iranians, the Lebanese, the Houthis are even in the act as well. It's an amazing thing. The strike against, now, not Houthis in Syria, but Houthis are part of their allied kind of group. The strike against Iranian troops last night near Al-Mayadeen was conducted by U.S. A-10 Warthogs. I haven't been able to track this down. Now, Tendar is a reputable source, but I haven't been able to track this down in other news, so I'm giving this with a grain of salt here. During the attack, around 50 troops and several vehicles were destroyed. Again, Iranian troops. Iran is directly controlling the western part of the Euphrates River in this sector, while SD forces control the eastern portion. So if you want to understand what's going on, so Aleppo's up in this neighborhood, right? And these rebels are coming down from the north, and they're kind of like, Turkey is supporting them. Over on this side are Kurds and like an American presence and Kurdish forces. Now, Kurds have been our best friends. They were in Iraq fighting on our side. When I'm saying us, I'm saying Americans. They were on Iraq fighting for us, but Turkey hates the Kurds, and the Kurds have kind of control of this sector, and they're supporting, but both of these hate this guy, Assad, and it's a really confounding kind of thing to understand. Okay, Houthi fighters fired ballistic and cruise missiles and drones targeting U.S. military vessel and 3 American flagged commercial vessels in the Gulf of Aden on December 1st. That was yesterday. So And again, the Houthis are supported by Iran. So Iran's behind a lot of this. And yeah, so it's all a big, big mess. Syrians can't understand why Putin isn't rescuing Assad like he always has. We know why, for the same reason that he isn't going to rescue Lukashenko or Maduro, or go on with the list, right? Ukraine is doing God's work, says Jay in Kyiv. Like, yeah, they're like, hey, you betrayed us, Putin. Russia's no longer an ally. Yeah, well, I mean, it's kind of like that. I mean, he's overextended. He really is overextended. Okay, let's talk to big story number 3, overextended in Georgia. Here are protests in Georgia that are heating up. 4th night of protest. So let's listen to this. Hear what Steve Rosenberg from the BBC has to say about this.
In Tbilisi, now every night is fireworks night. A 4th night
That's
of
that
protest.
iconic video or iconic picture I was talking about that's going to be iconic in the protest in Georgia.
Parliament. While inside, police try to keep protesters at bay. A brolly helps at moments like these.
So the police right now are firing streams of water from inside the Parliament, going the other way, fireworks hurled by the protesters. It is the most surreal standoff.
The crowds are huge. So is the disappointment that the government...
So the crowds are huge, upwards of 200,000 in a city of 1.2 million. So that's pretty significant.
The government here has frozen accession talks with the EU. But people are still hoping.
Every single day, there's more and more people coming. And it gives me hope that this government will finally go away.
It seems just like the Euromaidan in many, many ways. Here's the pro-Russian government is on the brink. There are twice as many people on this roadway in front of the Parliament building as there were yesterday. 4th night of protests in Georgia ends with dispersals and arrests in Tbilisi. Protests against the government decision to delay EU integration until 2028 is continued. Police used tear gas and special forces cleared this avenue by the morning. Baltic states now have, that's Lithuania, Latvia, and Estonia, have imposed sanctions on those responsible for the crackdown on activists in Georgia. I'm not sure how much will come of sanctions from the Baltic states, but the Baltic states are always on the leading edge of this sort of thing. Good on them. And clergy are trying to interpose themselves between police units and protesters in Tbilisi, protecting people from Moscow-ordered violence. So many flashbacks from 2013, 2014 Maidan Revolution, as Ukrainian National Church did the same thing, fulfilling their duty. This is then, this is now. So that's pretty impressive. Let's switch our attention now to Romania. In Romania's parliamentary elections, the pro-European Social Democrat Party emerged victorious, securing 22.74% of the votes in the Chamber of Deputies and 22.55% in the Senate, with 99.14% of the votes counted. The PSD's coalition partner, the National Liberation Party, garnered 14.43% and 13.4% in respective chambers. Okay, so that's what's happened so far. The far-right Alliance for Unification of Romanians, led by Georgescu, gained 18%. So here's a story in AP, Romania's pro-Western party's parliamentary election as far-right makes gains. Just a couple of paragraphs here. In Bucharest, Romania, pro-Western parties won the most votes in Romania's parliamentary election, data on Monday shows, and will look to form a coalition government as the European Union country sees a surge of support for far-right nationalists who made huge gains in the country's legislature. The election revealed widespread anti-establishment sentiment in the EU and NATO member country, which is due to hold a presidential runoff on December 8th. It's December 2nd, so about a week from now, between a far-right populist, Georgescu, and the USR's Elena Lasconi. So that's what's coming down the road for Romania in about a week. Hopefully cooler heads will prevail there. Okay. The war could have been over long ago had Biden had a strategy and some guts. This was an article by Phillips O'Brien, and it was in The Atlantic, How Biden Made a Mess of Ukraine. And I'm just going to show you the one last paragraph in the article because it's a good summary. The war has now gone on so long that Biden won't figure in its ending. Ukrainians can still fight on with Europe's help. Perhaps President-elect Trump will confound his allies and detractors alike by standing with Ukraine instead of indulging Putin. What is clear is that Biden missed the moment. The administration has dithered, looking more and more powerless as Ukraine suffered an emergent anti-Western alliance that includes Iran, North Korea, and China has come to Russia's aid. Now, Anna from Ukraine and I were talking about this the other day, and I think we can call them the CRINKs, C-R-I-N-K. China, Russia, Iran, NK is North Korea, and S now for Syria, the CRINKs. Biden could have helped create a better, more secure world than the one that existed in February 2022. Instead, he ushered in a much more dangerous one. And I think that's what happened when he was too cautious in dealing with Putin. But now he wasn't too cautious in another regard, and that is he said for a long time, I won't pardon Hunter Biden, and yesterday he pardoned his son, and it's just an awful look. President Joe Biden has officially pardoned his son, Hunter Biden. After consistently claiming that he would not pardon his son, Hunter, President Biden pardons his son, and it spans about a decade's worth for anything that he might have done during this period of time. Joe Biden will go down in history not just for not supporting Ukraine as he should have, but for this act as well. And I already saw conservatives talking about like he just smoothed the path for Trump to do whatever he wants to do with his pardons as well. How can you, like, if you don't condemn Biden for what he's doing, pardoning his own son here, you can't condemn Trump for what Trump pardons later on, and vice versa. Now, lest you think that I'm just making political points smacking at Joe Biden, I'm not. Hunter Biden is now perfectly qualified to serve in Trump's cabinet, says Darth Putin. Unfortunately, given some of Trump's picks, there might be some truth to that. Now, Darth Putin continues, what Biden should have done is make his children's existence an official state secret and shoot the first journalist who asks about them. I remain master strategist. Just a few more things Anton Gerashenko talks about as the ruble plummets. Putin's press secretary, Peskov, claims that the US dollar is eroding. Wait, the ruble is the one that's fallen apart here. According to him, if the United States forces other countries to use the dollar, they will switch to national currencies. No, they won't. They don't want to do that. The dollar is beginning to lose attractiveness as a reserve currency for a number of countries. This process of erosion of the dollar's attractiveness is really underway and is gaining momentum, Peskov added. Well, Trump answered that. Trump pours cold water on Putin's new currency project, threatening crushing tariffs on the BRICS. Now, he's already wanting to do the tariffs anyway, so you're just giving him a reason here. He put this out on Truth Social, the idea that the BRICS countries are trying to move away from the dollar while we stand by and watch is over. We require a commitment from these countries that they will neither create new BRICS currency nor back any other currency to replace the mighty US dollar, or they will face 100% tariffs. Now, he's really talking to China here, I think, and should expect to say goodbye to selling into the wonderful US economy. They can find another sucker. There's no chance that the BRICS will replace the US dollar in international trade, and any country that tries should wave goodbye to America. Well, we might actually do this to ourselves if we get Bitcoin or some kind of cryptocurrency up and running, as Elon Musk and others want to see happen. Okay, last big story about sanctions. The sanctions that are hurting the Russian economy right now, it's because we're finally starting to do things that we should have done all along. This is a former presidential envoy saying, yes, been saying this since the day Russia attacked. It's not a lesson we, the EU or UK, needed to learn. It was blindingly obvious from the very beginning. Well, what's the lesson? Well, here. Key lesson from Russia's sanctions is that sanctioning only some banks doesn't work. You're targeting these banks? Nope. You have to sanction all banks, a de facto trade embargo, and that has an effect. Now, yesterday I concluded with this, and I want to go back to it because it's really important. On December 1st, 1991, when Ukraine voted to leave the Soviet Union, the Ukrainian people went on to vote in an independence referendum to decide whether they should be free from Moscow's control. Yes, 28.8 million. No, 2.4 million. And now let's look at those regions again, because I talked about this, but I want to highlight this. The Donbass, both Donetsk and Luhansk at 83%, Crimea 54%, Kherson 90%, Zaporizhia 90%, Kyiv 92%. The lowest one was 54%. It was still a majority in Crimea. And yet we're to believe that this whole region wanted to rejoin Russia with 90% approval of joining Russia? That's hard to swallow. Okay, two last things. First, put your comments below about what's in that silver briefcase, but wrong answers only, just to have a little fun. And then finally, what does this mean when this light comes on? It's kind of what the world feels like right now. All right, my friends, that's all that I have. Thank you for the likes and the shares and the subscribes. Thank you especially to my patrons and members on my YouTube channel. I really appreciate you. Thank you for being the kind of person that cares about Ukraine.